Hello, guys, and welcome back to another installment of Galley Stories, Stories of the Bering Sea and Beyond. I am your host, Mark Kaler. Probably going to be a little rusty on this one today. Just got back from what was intended to be a week in Alaska and ended up being 3, as you probably noticed with a couple missed broadcasts there. But got a really good guest for us today. Young man named Gus Molan. Gus has been, you probably remember episode 1, his father was on, Jack Molan. And Gus has been raised in the industry. Well, you know what? Let's just let him tell the story. Gus, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Really good. Really good.
Good. So I guess my story with fishing and boats and this industry is started before I can even remember, actually. I ended up going up with my father and mother, who my father, like Mark said, you guys know a little bit of his story, but he was actually not even running a boat at that time. He was the engineer on the Columbia. At that time it was a crabber, and he had worked a lot of the year, and they asked him to go tendering as the engineer, and they didn't have another engineer, and he said, well, I'll go, but I'm bringing my wife and my 6-month-old son. And so I guess that's where my first boat experience started. I went up and we were running fish from Prince William Sound down to Ketchikan, and so I crossed the Gulf. I think it was 3 or 4 times that summer, as a 6-month-old. And then from there, I stayed home. Obviously, growing up with my mom, and my dad kept fishing, and then I had 2 more sisters that were younger than me, and so I think once my mom had 3 of us at home alone for a lot of the year, she kind of had her hands full, and I kept talking about wanting to go to Alaska, and finally when I believe I was in 3rd grade, so about 9 years old, my dad asked if I, wanted to go for the summer, and I didn't even hesitate and said yes. He said, well, don't get your hopes up yet, At that time, Trident Seafoods owned the Columbia, the boat that my dad was running, and we had to get permission from Chuck, the owner. So he called Chuck and asked him, said, I got a 9-year-old son that's just dying to go, and he said, I think that's a great idea. And so I ended up going up that summer when I was 9, and it was at that point we weren't tendering, we were fishing. We'd do a June 1st pollock opener, so it's all pollock fishing out of Sandpoint, and then we'd go do bee season. And then later on, I started going up every summer from then on. It was just like what I did.
I want to go back to that
Okay.
first summer, though, because you were chomping at the bit and wanting to go and asking to go and asking to go. Now, your father tells it a different way. In fact, once I read his book, he said that he pretty much had to take you north.
Yeah.
Because you were calling your underwear. What were you calling your underwear?
I was raised by women, my mom, and I was calling my underwear panties, or I did once, and that was all it took. So once that happened, he's like, you're going to Alaska, which I did want to go, but it was definitely time.
So at 9 years old, what was your first experience? I mean, tell us what the boat was doing, but how...
They actually pulled me out of school 6 weeks early. I didn't even finish 3rd grade. When I found out we were going up, we went up, beginning of May to go do, I can't remember, we were fishing. We weren't tendering at that point. But, so I took off 6 weeks early from 3rd grade and went up, and I'd stay up there all summer till, mid to later August when I had to come back and go back to school. And so it was the best childhood you could think of, really. I mean, you're growing up with a bunch of guys then. I was, from then on, I was around my 2 sisters and my mom all summer, every summer before that, and the rest of the year. But, I was, free ran of the boat, and I try to help the guys as much as possible. But
what were your duties at 9 years old on deck?
Well, I tried to get duties because I wanted my dad to pay me, and that never really worked out. He always said, I'll pay you $10 a day or whatever it was, and I never seemed to see any money. So, but I learned to sew back then. All the guys on the boat were just awesome to me. They treated me like the captain's son, but they also taught me a ton of stuff. A lot of different guys through the years, especially when we started tendering. And we weren't fishing. We had tender crews back then because we would literally tender all summer long. and then start bee season, the pollock season, the fishing season in the fall after I went home. And so, I met a lot of different guys from a lot of different walks of life back then, and I don't know. It was just a fantastic childhood. You get to see stuff that a lot of people just never get to see as a young kid. And I just thought it was normal. It's just what we did. So I did that. Well, I was on that. We'd go up to Bristol Bay in the later years, and so I was probably 10 years old, 11 years old. So a couple years after my first year, and we would tender, and then I had a really good friend that was with his dad on a gill netter, on a smaller salmon boat, actually on the Moby Duck, so it's an amphibious gill netter. Drives up on land, goes out in the water. And so we would tender, and then I would jump over there at the very end for a week or two and do some scratch fishing, and we'd go beach combing, and we'd go four-wheeling up in the tundra, and we'd go, just adventure life.
Who was your friend?
Chris Copra is the kid's name, and Dave Copra, his dad, owned the boat, which he actually was the first captain of the Columbia, which is the boat that my dad was running at the time.
So you guys kind of grew up together?
We did, yeah. We grew up from a very young, since birth together. And so it was always super exciting because there was no kids around really when I was up there those summers. We weren't on land a whole lot. We were on the boat most of the time, and it was fun. But once I saw a kid that I could play with as a friend, that was even better. Mm-hmm. And so I did that until I was 14, legal age to work finally. And so
all without pay.
Yes, well,
except for that experience, which is invaluable.
Correct. I actually ended up jumping over when I was over on the gill netter. We had a couple big days once in a while, scratch fishing, the end of the season, but we'd go sell to cash buyers. And I remember Dave Copra, the guy that was running the boat and owned the boat, handed me two $100 bills one time after I think we ended up going dry, and we were hauling, 4,000 pounds of salmon through the mud. And we worked all day, and I just thought, that's just what you do, But he handed me $200, and I'd never seen $200 in my life, And so from then on, I was hooked on gill netting. I didn't think there was any money to be made with my dad. So when I turned 14, I ended up going set netting up in Naknek with family friends who have since become really good lifelong family friends, family. And so the wife ran 4 set net sites on the beach with her daughters and some other guys that helped him out. And then the husband, he's been fishing drifting in Bristol Bay before there was even permits or anything. And so I worked 2 years on the beach.
Which family is
set
this?
Netting. Mel and Catherine Brown. Her grandfather, who she was raised by in Naknek, is a legend there. He's one of the oldest guys in Naknek. He homesteaded area up in the national park before it was even there, so they still own land up in the national park, and really, really awesome family. But I worked 2 years on the beach with her, and then worked 3 years on the boat with him after that.
So 14 to 16, and then...
Yeah, and so right up till I was, 14 to 16 and 16 to 19 or 20 on the boat. And so when I turned 18, I could start working on the Columbia as an actual hired crew member. With Trident Seafoods, I was 18 years old, and so I could get hired. And so, Bristol Bay would get over, and I'd still have this chunk of summer before I was to have to go back to school. Right then, I was starting to go to college, too. And so I kind of went back and forth on that. Was I going to go to college, or was I just going to fish full-time? But I got, I don't want to say pressured into it, but encouraged into going to school by both my dad and my mom, and then also Jim McManus, who was managing the boats at the time, kind of said, well, why don't you give it a shot? We'll always have a spot for you in the summer, and see how you like it, and go from there. So I would fish Bristol Bay, and then I would jump on whatever boat was going out of Bristol Bay, back to Dutch Harbor. After Bristol Bay was done, I'd jump and catch a ride and go down and jump on the Columbia and fish the rest of the summer pollock fishing. And I did that for a couple years until one summer, Bristol Bay was fun. It was really fun, but I wasn't there during the big years. We had a couple big fish years, and the price was kind of bad. And it was great money as a 14-year-old or 16-year-old, but once I was growing up a little bit, I missed like 10 pollock trips or something because I was in Bristol Bay one year, and that's a lot of money, a lot more money for that time of year, and so I just decided that I wasn't going to be able to do Bristol Bay anymore, even though I loved it, and so I started just pollock fishing in the summer times. And I stuck with college. It was hard. After the first term of college, I thought I was done. I thought, it was different. I went to college in LA, Los Angeles. I'm from a small town in Oregon, and so that was a shock. And then,
what was your major? What were you?
I majored in international business, and I didn't mind school. I was always decent at school. I was never. I didn't try too hard, which I think I probably should have tried harder. But it came really. School came easy, but it was just I looked at numbers. I was always a numbers person, and I looked at what my college professors were making a year, and I looked at what I was making just in the summertime fishing, and just went, this is crazy. I shouldn't even be here, But then I got a girlfriend, and I decided to stick around, for the full year, and then that turned into, well, I might as well finish. And I did take a term or two off and fish during the winter, just so I could pay for school, and I didn't accrue a bunch of debt, going to school. I didn't want to graduate and have to pay a bunch of stuff off. And so I was able to, fish when I had the time, and then go to school, and I ended up finishing up there. And I met my wife early on, but we got engaged.
Was that the girlfriend?
No, that was. I grew up with my wife. Went separate ways after we were really good friends in high school. Went separate ways in college. We went to different schools, different states, but got together right at the end of college. Reconnected. Got engaged right after college there, and so when we got engaged, I decided I was going to try to stay home. I didn't want to be gone that much and try to be married, and so I quit fishing. We ended up getting married and moving to Utah, of all places, is where I got a job, and she got a job there, and we liked it. It was good. It was a good community and a great spot to live, like lots of outdoor activity. But 8 months into it, Uncle Sam came calling from the year before, and it's that age-long story of you can't quit because you owe it from last year. So we kind of looked at what we owed in taxes, and it wasn't it wasn't large by any means, but for us, when you go from making a bunch of money to making not much at all,
wage,
an hourly wage, it's daunting. And so we talked about it, and I called my dad and said, well, I might be coming back fishing, and he said, oh, great, we got a spot. So I think it took about a month, and I was back at it. So I quit fishing for 8 months. That was my try at staying home, doing the land thing.
What were you doing on the land? What was your job?
I was working in an office, working for a company back that sells Jeep parts, off-road vehicle parts. I didn't mind the job. It was a good job.
It's kind of fitting, though, because on your Facebook page, there's always, if it's not something to do with fishing, it's something to do with hiking or off-roading in your truck or spot camping. I don't know. You got that canopy that drops right off the top of your Jeep.
Yeah. No, that's definitely our. I say our because it's me and my son now, but our hobby. We like to get out and go camping and off-roading and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So I go back fishing on the Columbia, and we were going to have our son, might have been a year or two after that, but we were in a position where I said, well, I want to work, we're having a kid, I just want to work half-time. I think we can make this work, where we were living, what we were doing. My wife's a dental hygienist, so she makes, a good income, said, okay, I want to work half time. I want to be home more. And so I did that for quite a few years. I split with another guy and just worked half time. And then we got pregnant again, and we're having another kid, and kind of said, well, now I need to work full time. So I actually got off the Columbia.
What was the staging of your kids? How long were you married before you get?
I was married for 2 years.
And then who was born?
And Harper. My son was born, and then 3 years after that, my daughter was born, Emmanuel. And we were living in on the Oregon coast still at that time. And so there wasn't room to work full time on the Columbia because it had full crew, and I was splitting with the guy I'd been splitting with for a long time, and he said, well, he needed to work full time at that point too, and so I said, well, I'll see what's available, and there was a job on the Arcturus available, and so I got on there and worked there for 6 years.
That's a great boat.
It's a great boat, beautiful boat. Dakota Creek boat, 131 foot Dakota Creek boat. It's really taken care of well. Great crew, great captain.
It really is. In fact, Woodchuck.
Yeah.
I started calling him Woodchuck because he was always sanding in there.
Oh, yeah.
They treat that boat like most crews treat their boats like a home. When you're on there for 6 or 8 months a year.
Yep. Yeah, I when I got on there as the new guy on the boat, I think Scott had been on there for 8 years, and he was the newest guy besides that. I think Rob had been on there for 16 years or something, and Nick's been on there forever twice, and Glenn's been on there since the Hendricks.
They built it around
since the Hendricks owned it way back, before Trident bought it. But no, it's a great boat, beautiful boat. Just fished pollock, strictly pollock. Did very little of anything else. But no, that was awesome. And then last summer, I got off of there and got onto a smaller boat called the Arctic Ram that Trident had bought. It was originally the Hazel Lorraine, which is, if you see the boat now and as it was when they bought it, it is absolutely two different boats.
Way different. Sponsoned, and then now a new house.
Not even the same. Yeah, sponsoned and lengthened a little bit, and then a new house. I mean, it's a completely different boat. And so I'm on there now, and we do a little of everything. We do pollock, we do cod, we do Kodiak pollock, we do hake down in Oregon. The boat works and works and works.
So workhorse.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. They put a lot of fish on that boat, and it's great. It's great.
Now, that's your first experience down there getting hake, right?
It is. Yeah, this summer we were fishing hake off of Oregon, and I had done it as a kid one other time, and I was young. I might have been 7 years old or something like that. My dad was running the Columbia, the boat that he ran, and he came in and grabbed me in Astoria, and we went back out, and we were delivering, we were JVing, so we were catching bags of hake and transferring them over to a mothership. And I did that for a couple weeks. But that was my only, experience. Yeah, it wasn't real experience. So this was my first real experience hake fishing, which it's very similar to pollock fishing.
You've almost not even had a choice about this path.
Yeah.
You were born into it.
Yeah. No, it was, and I never really thought about it, I guess. I did later, I guess, when I got married and all that. But, I graduated college and looked at all my friends that were getting entry-level jobs, and I had already had all this experience, and it was like, well, why would I do anything else,
Mm-hmm. And you're a fully licensed captain now.
Yes, yeah, I got licensed. I did school in my off time and all that, and but no, it's been a great life. I think once we have kids, it does change. It's harder. I think a lot of the hardest parts of the job are being gone.
And you were not raised by the stereotypical fisherman. You were not raised by the partier, the drinker, the let's sample all the drugs kind of guy. Not that that's what all fishermen do. It's the stereotype.
Correct.
But your father could not be further away from that.
Yeah, no, he always taught me that. He said, don't be a dumb fisherman. So it was always, you're a professional, and there are a lot of those professional guys, throughout our industry. But I want to say especially you see them in the Pollock fleet. You see guys that have been on the same boats for 35 years. They might have had a little wild side in their younger day, but they're professionals. That's what they do. It's their career. That's how they act. They don't act like they're going to go fish this one season and no idea what they're doing next. It's what we do. But no, he always instilled that in me, that act as if this is your life, which it is, but be a professional at it. Don't waste it, pretty much.
How old's Harper now?
Harper he'll be 9 here pretty quick next month.
Does that mean he's running up to Alaska pretty soon?
He would love to. He asks every day. He wants to go to Alaska very, very badly. And, the industry has changed. It's, it used to be so much family up there. And there still is to a point, but in our fishery, there's less and less of it.
If you're gonna go tender, though, it would be...
Correct. Yeah, tendering would be great.
Casey McManus, he's taking Charlie up, and Charlie can't be more than 8 years old now. 7 or 8 years old.
I think they're similar ages, maybe a little younger. But no, that'd be great. And we've talked about buying a Bristol Bay gill netter and doing more of a family thing in the summertime, and which might happen someday. But he definitely is chomping at the bit to go.
So you see him doing it too?
I don't know. I don't know if he's got a long time till he decides that, and see how the industry goes, and I'll definitely push him to go to college too and get an education, because I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what will happen tomorrow? And to have something to fall back on is important, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the education part of it, but going away for 4 years and doing your own thing, and it's just a lot of growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Sticking with something and accomplishing it, and so if he wants to be a fisherman, then more power to him. But give him all the options.
Have you had very many scary experiences?
Scary experiences. I think we have. There's been scary times, but during those times, it never seems like a scary. I think like training and just reaction takes over, and you can be standing waist deep in water on deck, where if you look back at it, you're like, oh yeah, that was a little hairy, but at the time you just have a task at hand. You're fixing the problem, or it's not so in the moment. I've never been that scared on the boat, and I've been on a lot of boats. I've been on a lot of I've always been with Trident Seafoods, but I've been on most of their Pollock boats at one time or another. But that said, they're all really good boats, and they're well kept up, and safety's always been a priority. All the captains I've worked for, stress it. We drill, and I think that's why at the moment it's not as scary, is because you're training, and what you drilled and everything takes over, and you just do it, and then later you can talk about it and be like, oh, that was kind of scary. But I think the scariest I've ever been in Alaska was a couple summers ago. I was on the Arcturus, and sometimes in the summertime, there's a lot of boats delivering, so we have a rotation. So we'll fish, and then we will get a couple days, I want to say days off, but you're working on the boat and doing projects and stuff, but you can't fish. You got to wait for the plant to catch up with the amount of fish they got, and then you can go fish again. So one thing we do if we get all our projects done is we go out and we go sport fishing. And so we had it was a 14-foot rigid bottom inflatable, great little skiff that we've had for a long time, kept it up, and we'd go out and we'd go fish for cod and halibut and whatever we had a license for. And we were out there just outside of Dutch Harbor, and we were jigging for cod and halibut, and we sit up on the rails of the inflatable as we jig, and the engine wasn't running, and I've always had this irrational fear of big animals in the water. Always. I don't like them. Whales, seals, anything like that. I'm okay when I'm on the big boat, but if I'm in a skiff or something, like, all the guys on the boat always made fun of me, because if I saw a whale, I just usually I'm running the kicker, I'll just turn and go the other way. I just don't want to be around them. I don't want to be near them. They can do their own thing, and I'll do my own thing, and we're fine. But that day we didn't see many whales, and it was weird because in the summertime up there, they're just everywhere. I mean, the humpbacks are thick. And so we're sitting there jigging, and I had caught a cod, and we'd caught plenty of cod that day, so I took it off my hook and threw it back and just started to set my line again, and it was like a car wreck. We got hit by a whale from the front of the skiff, and I don't think it was maliciously, but I think he was coming up for a breath. But he hit us so hard that I did a backflip. I went out of the skiff backwards into the water, and I looked up at the skiff, and I thought the whole thing was coming over on top of me. There was 2 other people in the skiff at the time, and so when the skiff didn't go over, it righted itself, completely full of water though, from rail to rail. And I got 1 foot. I'm wearing rain gear, and thank God I had a life jacket on, because I was laying in the water on my back with 1 foot up on the rail. And I look over, and all I can see is whale. This thing's laying on its side looking at us, because he has no idea. I think it shocked him. He has no idea that, like, what happened. He came up for a breath. I never heard him breathe. He just rolled on his side and looked at us. And so it was one of the only times in my life I've had an out-of-body experience, because this is like my worst nightmare. This whale that I didn't want to be around is all of a sudden attacking me, and so I'm screaming at Scott, the engineer on the Arcturus, who's in the boat now. I'm screaming at him to get me out of the water, because I got 1 foot up there and I'm trying to reach for anything. And the way Scott's laughing. And so
I can picture this whole thing going down.
It's terrifying. I mean, it's just the worst thing that could have happened to me, I think. And so I finally get a hold of Scott, and Scott's not a real big guy. And so I get a hold of him right by the collar and start to pull myself in the boat, and he doesn't have, there's stuff floating everywhere. The thing's full of water. Like, he doesn't have footing, and so he starts to come in after me because I'm pulling myself up. So I realized and stopped before I pulled him in the water with me. And so finally he gets his footing, pulls him back in the skiff. By then the whale had just sunk below the surface, and I'm just screaming, we got to get out of here, we got to go. Like, I'm freaking out. We had a government observer in the boat with us, who we have to have government observers on all Pollock boats 100% of the time. And they're usually younger, just graduated college. Most of them are great people. And so he wanted to come out fishing with us that day. So it's, yeah, sure, come on out. But I don't think he'd ever been, like, sport fishing before. And he was in the front of the boat when the whale hit it. And so he flew all the way to the back of the boat and actually hit his nose on the back of Scott's head. And so everybody that's been hitting the nose, which is most people, knows, there's a lot of blood. It's exploded everywhere. So I get in the boat and see all this blood and go, oh no, someone's dying, and his face is, full of blood. And it ends up he was fine. He went to the clinic. It was not a broken nose. He just got popped in the nose. But he also lost his glasses, so he can't see, and there's blood everywhere. And so he's kind of in a bad spot. And then Scott's laughing, and I'm freaking out at this whale. And so I go to pull the engine to get out of there, the outboard, and the whale broke the back fin off of it, and then broke the shifting knob when he hit it, because he actually hit the outboard on the way by. And so it knocked it into forward, and I couldn't pull it to start it. And, in the heat of the moment, freaking out, thinking this whale's going to hit us with his tail now, or I don't know. But finally get it shifted, start going. Thank God we were an inflatable, or else we would have sunk, because it was completely full of water. But Scott goes, we're getting out of there, draining the water. Scott goes to reel up the pole that I just released a cod and put my flip my bail and let the jig back down, and all of a sudden it starts peeling out full speed on the surface, like that. And he goes, "We caught the whale," And I said, "Just throw the whole pole over. I'm not stopping," Which we didn't actually hook him. I think it got tangled, but it popped off, and he reeled it up, and we got back, and we told Glenn, it's like, he's like, "What the hell happened?" Because there's blood everywhere, and And
you're wet.
well, he's thinking somebody punched the observer in the face, and we're like, no one hit the observer. He thought maybe somebody was trying to pull the outboard and knocked it, because no one believed us at first. And finally we stuck to the story, and then everybody started, are you serious? And he was like, yeah, like we got hit by a whale.
So you had that fear before the whale? I
mean, they used everybody on Arcturus, all the guys made fun of me constantly because we were out in the skiff fishing, some summers quite a bit, because there's a lot of days off with a lot of slow rotation,
Mm-hmm.
and so no, I always had that fear. If I saw whales, I would go the other way. I didn't want to be around them, didn't want to be near them. I just had no interest,
To find yourself in the water.
Yeah, and I'm sure it hit us by accident. He just coming up.
He was after you.
Well, then that's exactly what went through my mind, is that this whale's trying to eat me. But the size of them up close, of a humpback whale, and the power behind that thing just coming up to breathe, it was absolutely incredible.
A lot of folks that haven't seen them in real life, they don't realize how big these things are.
No, they are just massive, and especially when you're laying next to one. Now that everything's fine, it's like cool story or whatever, but at the time it was just
the worst day.
Yeah, I remember looking up at the skiff as it was coming at me and being like, this isn't real. This can't be real. This is my dream, this is my nightmare that I've had, and I don't like it. But that was honestly the most scared I've ever been in Alaska in my fishing career.
It's pretty scary, actually.
It was.
Some people would be like, that was an incredible experience.
Yeah. We got back and Woodchuck said, I never go fishing. I should have gone fishing today. He wanted to, but not me. I had no interest in that.
Yeah.
But no, on the actual boats, you get into hairy situations and stuff, but everybody I've worked with has been professional. The boats have been great. I was never scared that we were going to roll over or sink or anything like that. Mm-hmm. You just, you have stuff break, you have stuff that happens like that, but you just deal with it and deal with it in the safest and most efficient way you can.
What do you, obviously been going up since you were 9, you got to have a lot of really good experiences too. If you had to single one out, like being that clicking moment of it, just being an awesome lifestyle, would you have one in mind?
I don't know if I could pick one for that, but part of the lifestyle, obviously being gone and when you have a family is probably the hardest part of the job, like I had mentioned. But the flip side of that is when you're home. And my wife was able to take quite a few years off from work when we had our kids. And so when I get home, we were free to go wherever and do whatever. And so we were able to spend, months in Mexico at a time and travel and do daily stuff that I think most people that work a 9 to 5 don't understand. They get 2 weeks off a year, and here I am with a 3.5 month block or 4 month block of time. Even when I was working half time, I had to have even more, and so that part of it is pretty irreplaceable, especially when the kids are young.
It's kind of an exchange, isn't it?
It is.
Because the 9 to 5, you might get to spend an hour with your kids a night,
mm-hmm.
Maybe 2 if you're really lucky.
Yeah.
And then the weekends, but you got chores to do because you've been working a 9 to 5 and haven't done the trash or mowed the lawn, or
yep. And you're tired,
but you're getting all of your family time in one huge chunk.
Yep. And so when we got internet on the boats now, and for most people, when I say internet, they're thinking, like your cell phone.
High speed.
It is not like that. It is nowhere near that.
Dial-up 4.0.
It's barely dial-up, but it's enough to, message, check your bank account. We can talk on the phone now, stuff like that from sea, which wasn't, when I started going up as a kid, you'd have to find a payphone, that's outside with broken out windows and try not to freeze to death if you wanted to call home for 50 cents a minute.
I remember we would tie up in Sitka, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they'd pull out the phone line.
Yep.
And run it to the boat so we could plug in the phone.
And I remember when they started doing that in Akutan, and that was deluxe then, because you didn't have to go up to get on the phone. You still had to use your calling card, but who cares? That's fine.
Yeah.
But no, now we have full-time everything on the boat, which made having a life at home a lot easier. You can check in every day. You can message the wife and see how things are going with the kids. And
you guys use WhatsApp?
We do.
It seems to work anywhere.
That came into the industry up there, and when nothing else will work, that'll still work. You can still get messages in and out. It takes very, very little bandwidth.
WhatsApp, you can contact us at mark@galleystories.net.
Exactly. No, that's a
it really does, though.
Yeah, no, it does, and it just is so nice to stay connected. It instead of calling, once a week to check in, and you try to get filled in on everything that's going on when you're at the dock, when you're trying to get stuff done, because whenever you get to the dock, you're always trying to get projects done, or
offload this, or groceries,
and so when you're running in and out is the time that you have time to get some personal stuff done. And so with the change of that was really nice, especially when then you got kids and you want to stay in contact with them.
Yeah.
And so
I get most of you guys contact me through WhatsApp.
Oh yeah, it's so much easier.
Yeah, it's not even the phone anymore.
Yeah.
Have you used the phone portion of it?
Yes.
It works better, doesn't it?
It works fantastic, even on really, really slow even sometimes when you can't connect to your email through this really slow internet. You can WhatsApp the phone or WhatsApp voice, and it works great.
I've had guys call me on it because they can't get through on the boat phone, or they can't get through on. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like a WhatsApp commercial, but
it does right now.
It
really
not.
does. But they're not sponsoring us at all yet. But okay, so where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Still fishing. I've been doing this for, I haven't added up the years, but since I was 9, pretty much. Every single year with the school and everything. Still.
And how old are you now?
I am 34 years old. So, the next step is to start running a boat, and it's like nobody wants to retire.
Yeah.
Everybody, you can do this. This is what these guys have been doing for, since they were just like me, since they were young, and running a boat, pollock fishing physically isn't too terribly demanding. So, as long as you still got your wits about you and everything else, you can run a boat till you're into your later years.
We've got some that are.
Absolutely, and they're great guys, and I think that they've done it their whole life, and they don't want to let it go, because why would you? That's a big, huge part of who you are, and probably drive their wife nuts when they're home. So
yeah.
I get it. I totally get it. But that's the next step, and just keep fishing. I'm sure that's what I'll be doing.
Right.
So.
And Harper probably will too.
Yes, Harper will be going up at some point. He is just waiting for that opportunity.
There's some pride there, though. There's some pride in that family tradition,
Oh, absolutely. He got to go out. My dad ran the Cornelia Marie a couple summers ago for tendering, just for the summer, and they were down here in Seattle doing shipyard on the boat, repowering it and doing a bunch of stuff, and they went out for sea trials, and Casey let Harper steer and run the boat out in the sound there, and oh man, I got video of it. He was so focused, and he's steering around boats, and he still talks about it. He can't wait.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, it is. It really is.
Now the whole fleet though is a family.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Every boat.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of guys don't leave. People bounce around. Some people go to different companies with different boats and then come back, and but no, some people say they're quitting, like I did for 8 months, and you'll see them 8 months later. So I grew up with a lot of the guys. I grew up sitting on my dad's lap on the Columbia, talking to guys on the radio that some are gone now, retired or passed away, but a lot of them are still there, and or their son's running the boat now, and so it's definitely like a family.
But we're becoming an old family.
Yes.
Our fleet we're borderline ancient. There's some boats that have not had turnover in 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are great boats. They got something if they want.
But the minute that one of them goes, they're all gonna go.
Yeah, no, it's definitely aging. Pollock didn't really started getting fished by us until the later 80s is really when it took off, and so most of these guys were younger men back then, my age or a little younger, but they're still there. They're still in the same boats doing the same thing. And so it's definitely an aging. There definitely needs to be we need to make an effort to get younger kids into the fleet.
So how do we do that, or how do they do that?
That's a good question. And I've thought,
you were
no,
6 months old.
I've thought
3 times.
Thought about it, but back when I was looking at it, which I'm not that old, but even back, when I started pollock fishing with my dad, in the early to mid '90s, back when they all started, how to get younger people into it was say, well,
I'm gonna take my kid.
Well, no, well, even if they had no, fishing experiences, here, look what you can make. I mean, here's 150 grand you can make in a year fishing. And back then it was like, late 80s, 150 grand is a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot of money today.
It is, but it's not as much. I have a lot of friends, that I went to college with, that, do very well now. They put in their time and you can't buy a house for $50,000 anymore, like you used to be able to. And so I don't think that alone is going to get younger people into the industry. I think there needs to be more of a push. A lot of fishermen will get down on me for this, but our fishery, with the installation of IFQs, quotas, individual fishing quotas, and the time we spend up there and everything, it's becoming more like a salaried job. And I'm not saying that it needs to go to a salaried job by any means, because that's so anti-fisherman. You got to work.
Part of the joy.
You got to work harder. You make more. Which is not really how it works anymore. Everybody, the good guys take pride in their boat, and they're going to work hard no matter what. That's just who we are and what we do. But you have your own quota, so you're going to catch. You're going to catch the fish you have. It's not like if you get better fishing, you're going to catch more. And so I think there needs to start to be some incentive if they want to keep guys around as long as the older guys have been around. 35 years with the same company. So I don't know exactly what that looks like. There's a lot of hurt. I'm just talking, but these guys look at different companies to work for, the younger kids, and say, well, I can get benefit package with these guys and get some retirement and some insurance and stuff like that. And we're all independent contractors as of right now. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. I don't know exactly what it needs to look like, but I think there needs to be like a future laid out before these younger 401k,
kids. 401k, some planning.
Yeah,
right now, if you quit today, you've got what's in your account.
Correct. And that's the the classic fisherman is behind on the IRS and hasn't put a penny away, and because you get these huge checks
party time
all at once, and that's the way it is. And luckily I had a dad who again, the professional fisherman type thing kind of instilled in me, you put away money on your own, you got no one else is going to take care of that, so you got to do it. And so it's been okay, but to get more young people, I think it's got to be more than the allure of just huge paychecks. The pay is good; it'll still be there, but it's got to be you can work 30 years of this job, and you're gonna have you have a future here. You've got a whole career here, mm-hmm. And I think that's really good, because there is a ton of people that have been on the same boats or with the same company for their entire career, and that's both as a boat and as a company. That's really beneficial if you can keep the same good guys instead of this turnover all the time, which there are boats and companies like that get just constant turnover, and those are not the boats you want to be on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're about out of time here, but one last question. Do you eat pollock?
Oh, absolutely.
You do? No,
I do. I eat pollock. It's great, and I know I can say that because I'm a pollock fisherman, so definitely eat pollock. But like we buy the fish sticks for my kids. Well,
those are really good,
and for me, because anytime I had a fish stick growing up, it's like 90% breading and like no fish in there,
or
with no flavor.
It was just like a jelly in there.
Nothing in there. But we get now they're fantastic, and then they also made the pollock burgers, which me and my son love. Like those are, I prefer them over the salmon burgers, honestly. But no, it's a great fish. Everybody gets kind of down on it sometimes because it's cheap because it's
So
so.
it's the new species.
Well, it's so abundant, you know, but it's never going to be farmed. There's no reason to farm it. It's too abundant. So it's a naturally raised fish that's fantastic. I mean, compared to something like tilapia or something, it's just
Ugh.
way
Put them in the same
way far and above.
Yeah.
It's a lot like cod, very flaky. Yeah, no, I like it.
Before we wrap it up here, Gus, do you have anything else you want to say or feel like you need to?
I don't think so. I think that just want to thank you for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I do. All right, guys, this has been another installment of Galley Stories. I do encourage you to like and share on Facebook. Maybe shoot us in an email at mark@galleystories.net, net as in fishing. Enjoyed recording today for sure. Gus and I have been friends for quite a while. He's become more like a brother than anything else. So we will see you guys next time. Thanks again, Gus.
Yeah, thank you.